You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Welcome to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with your host, Rosalind Sedacca. Join Rosalind each week on a journey toward overcoming life's many challenges to achieve peace, empowerment, and positive transformation. It's time to relax, unwind, and transform your life with Rosalind Sedacca.
Hello, everyone. This is Rosalind Sedacca, and you're listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sedacca on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And as you know, I'm founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and we work to help parents before, during, and long after divorce, making the best decisions for themselves and especially for the children they love. And every week we have guests who are experts in topics related to divorce and dating and relationships. And today I'm very honored to have with us expert who's going to be talking about looking ahead after your divorce, and her name is Dr. Elizabeth Cohen. Welcome, Dr. Cohen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here with your audience.
Well, thank you. I just want to let everyone know that Dr. Cohen is a clinical psychologist, CEO, and founder of the online divorce course and membership Afterglow, The Light at the Other Side of Divorce, and she's the CEO of the Center for CBT in New York City. She's been featured on a wide array of TV shows, including Tamron Hall's show, Wall Street Journal, CBS News, Women's Health, Huffington Post, Thrive Global, Daily Beast, Good Housekeeping, etc. And she's a weekly contributor to Psychology Today with her divorce course column. She also hosts the Divorce Doctor podcast, where she interviews people about their divorce experiences. And she has a new book coming out that we're going to be talking about. It's based on her Afterglow program. It's called Light at the Other Side of Divorce, Discovering the New You. So welcome. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. Again, I'm so happy to be here. It's really an honor. I'm so happy to be talking to your audience.
So you're known as the divorce doctor. How did that come to be?
Well, I started my clinical work about over 20 years ago, and I've been working in private practice for 15 of those years, and decided a few years ago that I wanted to kind of step out of the office and do a little bit more work with people who aren't in New York City. I wanted to be able to help and share the message that life can be beautiful and wonderful after divorce beyond my brick and mortar practice. So I started teaching online, and once I got into the online space, it was clear that I was a doctor focusing on divorce. So that's my title.
And a very important area to be focusing on as well. So I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about how you came to write your upcoming book, The Other Side of Divorce.
Sure. So I went through my own divorce about 12 years ago, and when I was going through it and when I was, really in the midst of the pain and the struggle, and really, as I describe in the book, on my hands and knees, a girlfriend and I, who were both going through a divorce, Googled, divorce recovery programs. We thought, okay, we'll be able, we're in so much pain, we're struggling so much, but we'll be able to find some healing programs. And we couldn't find a comprehensive program that would cover co-parenting, releasing resentment, creating a life you want again. We couldn't find a comprehensive program. And even with the privilege of being a psychologist, an educated psychologist, it still was hard for me to piece it together. And I never wanted another person to have to piece anything together like that. I wanted it to just be available and clear and accessible to all.
Wow. Well, that's wonderful. And obviously that's what you're doing and have been doing for quite a while now.
I have. And, I also really wanted it to be, I have it on an online format where people can watch videos and do worksheets and really get involved in therapeutic healing without having to go to a therapist's office. I know how difficult, I'm sure you do as well, Rosalind, that how difficult it is during the time of divorce to find the money, to find the time, to find the space, especially when you have children, to actually focus on yourself. And so I created on the video series these bite-sized pieces that you could do, while you were waiting for your kid at hockey practice, while you were, dropping them off at school. It's very accessible healing because I don't think everyone can do the traditional psychotherapy route.
I think you're so right, and that's a wonderful idea. Very glad to hear that.
Thank you.
So I have a question for you that has been very important to me. I also had a divorce when my son was 11 years old, and once we've gone through this, we know what the experience is like. So I'm asking about divorce can take its toll on our well-being and our self-esteem. How do you suggest we cope with those challenges?
Well, so I'm trained as a cognitive behavioral therapist, so I always go to how are we thinking about our situation. In my book, I have a chapter, the first chapter, we go into how to look and think about your divorce from a perspective that really allows you to feel empowered. For example, Imagine thinking about you as being incredibly brave. I call the people who read my book superheroes, right? They're incredibly brave because they have, you've been through a divorce, Rosalind, it's one of the hardest things you could ever do. So instead of looking at yourself as a failure, as broken, as something being wrong, what if you switched the way you thought about yourself and looked at yourself as someone who is brave, who is a superhero? So I would start with really challenging the thoughts that you are using to describe yourself and your situation. Exercise in the book where I recommend that you write down all the things that you feel about your divorce. For example, I feel like my life is over, I'm broken, I'm a failure. And then write on the other side of the piece of paper the opposite of that. So I'm a success, or I'm stepping into something new, and practice saying those opposite words, because the power in how we describe ourselves is unimaginable. We are what we think. So if we allow ourselves to see ourselves as powerful, strong, capable, stepping into a new chapter after a chapter is perfectly done, we will feel differently about ourselves.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so important for us to monitor what we're telling ourselves about ourselves, because we very often don't hear our self-talk, and that can really sabotage us, right?
Absolutely. Self-talk is self-hypnosis. So if we are literally hypnotizing ourselves when we don't, say what we're saying. So if we tell ourselves something over and over and over, we come to believe it to be true.
So by doing the processes that you're suggesting in your book, you're physically writing things down and having to think about them and redirect the thoughts that you may have been stuck in. Is that right?
Exactly. And actually creating new thoughts. So replacing the old thoughts that are making you feel badly with thoughts that are more accurate. That's very important in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not that they're right, they're just more accurate.
And that also gives us a much better foundation for starting life again when we're after the divorce and want to be looking for new partners and healthier relationships, right?
That's exactly right. Because you're saying to yourself that I am, one of the things I like to teach people is to say, my relationship came to its perfect and absolute right conclusion.
That sounds good.
So then you're not feeling like there was something wrong and you have to be afraid you're going to do it again. It's like, no, this was wrapped up. This was exactly what it needed to be. I did what I could, and now I'm ready for the next chapter. Again, the idea of a chapter is that there is a movement forward.
I love that concept because that's very important. I think too often we feel stuck with everything about divorce. And when we're feeling stuck, it's very important to realize that this is a temporary state that we're in, and we can get support and we can help ourselves to move through it and move on. And there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, there is. And I know, because I know when I was going through it, you can't see that light. It feels so far away, and you doubt at moments that it's there. And that's why you need support. That's why you need support like the book. That's why people need support like the programs you do. You can't do this alone. You have to have other people for when those moments where you feel like, no, this is never going to get better, to show you, no, it has gotten better for me. And that's actually why I started my Divorce Doctor podcast, because I interview people who've gone through divorce and who've moved through it to a better place. And I share that because I want people to have inspiration that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
That's wonderful, and I totally agree. It makes a difference, and it's great to hear it from other people, so you get reminded, I'm not alone in this.
Exactly. And that's one message I really want to say to your audience is you are not alone.
Well, we've been listening to Dr. Elizabeth Cohen, and we're going to take a quick break. This is Rosalind Sedacca on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and we will be right back.
Hello, I'm Cece Schatz, and I'd like to welcome you to Going Solo Network, #1 complete singles connection. We strive to connect singles in a positive and fun way. Together, singles will begin to make new and lasting friendships, learn more about themselves, and embrace our new today lifestyle of going solo. Being single doesn't mean you have to be alone, and you can live a full, fun life, bringing your vibration to a higher level of attraction. Going Solo Network is an interactive social support singles community with several platforms helping singles connect with other like-minded individuals. We cover things like relationship loss, divorce recovery, embracing being single, single parenting, restructuring relationships, relationship building, transition into dating, and dating itself, solo in business, and going solo travelers. Be sure to join our private and exclusive fun interactive websites designed for singles today who want to begin to embrace living and enjoying the space they're in. Together we will learn to open our hearts, our minds. We will begin to share and connect with others while exploring our personal life goals as we begin to make a place in our new life. We will start to move forward in going solo to actually living our best lives. Going solo doesn't mean you have to be alone. Today, together, let's begin changing your life. Today, join the singles at Going Solo Network and start to live your new life. I'll see you there on GoingSoloNetwork.com.
Okay, this is Rosalind Sedacca. We are on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and our show is Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living. And we've been talking to Dr. Elizabeth Cohen, a clinical psychologist, and we've been talking about how to cope with divorce and find the light at the other side of divorce, which is the title of her upcoming new book. And Dr. Cohen, I wanted to ask you, because child-centered divorce, of course, is my passion, how do we protect our children during and long after the divorce?
Yeah. So here's what I want to say. I think that the number one, and I wonder, Rosalind, if you agree with this, I think the number one issue is that we have to, as parents, clean our side of the street. We have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. We have to clear out the rubble and the grief and the pain from our marriage so that we can show up fully for our kids. You know, we can read scripts and say all the things you're supposed to say, but kids are amazing. They can feel into how we are really feeling. So if we can't authentically stand in our truth and we say something because we know it's better to say, they're going to call us out on it. So I encourage all parents to put yourself first in the sense of take care of your mental health, take care of your grief, process your loss, process your grief in programs like mine, in programs like yours. Really give yourself the time to do that. That is a huge gift to your kids.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it's so important to remind these parents that they are role models for our children. So they are learning and watching us. How are we coping with challenges? How are we coping with issues that are beyond our initial ability to adapt to, and yet we have to? So they're watching and learning from us. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, we're modeling all the time. I mean, this is something that I want to let people who are going through a divorce know that, you know, one of the main things we talk about is, you know, I know it's very hard. It was hard for me, but it is an essential rule to not talk badly about your ex to your children. That hurts your children, not just because your children need to have a relationship with your ex, but because they are noticing how you handle when you're upset with someone. And if you're talking about your ex because you're upset with them, they are going to imply that when you are upset with them, you will be talking about them to someone else. And that leads their nervous system to feel unsafe, insecure, and uncared for. And so it is so incredibly important for you to know that kids hear and, more importantly, feel everything you do. Now, that can be a lot of pressure. I know, I'm a parent. So it's really important to also know that people make mistakes all the time. So you can make a mistake. You just have to go back and say, sorry, I made a mistake, and acknowledge it. No problem. Rupture and repair, that's part of life. But know that your kids are seeing, hearing, and most importantly, feeling all of what you're doing.
I couldn't agree more. And there's another side of it that I think is also very important, and that's talking about how children are impacted by the conflict around them when we're fighting and when they're hearing and seeing the conflict and the discord. Can you address that for us?
How to help the kids when they're seeing the conflict and discord?
Yes, and how parents can be aware of how conflict impacts the children.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, so research shows that conflict, two parents who are fighting and arguing, is more difficult and painful for kids than even them separating and being in two different homes. That children we all need and require a sense of safety, a sense of predictability, a sense of our needs being met. And when two adults who are supposed to be in charge of a kid are, arguing, that means their energy, their focus, their intensity and intention is on something else. And the kids will naturally feel more alone. And so conflict not only is stressful to be around because they can't really figure out how to end it, it leads their nervous system to feeling more insecure. And the way developmentally kids process when something is happening like that around them, and I'm sure you've talked about this, is they start wondering if it's their fault. Is there something they had done that they should have done differently?
Oh, yes. And that can be such a dark hole that kids can go down. And so we have to remind them frequently about the fact that they are totally innocent. Even if parents are fighting about the kids, it's never the children's fault, right?
Exactly. And we really need, as parents, you need to know that your child naturally will think that it was their fault. You don't know. You don't think it's their fault, so you might be surprised to hear that. But it's developmentally appropriate for kids to think that they've done something wrong so that they can change a situation that's uncomfortable for them. So one of the things that I often said to my children was, this has nothing to do with you. This is not your fault. This is not anything you've done wrong. I repeated it so many times. I just articulated it honestly to them.
And hopefully they're going to listen and hear and absorb it and understand what you're trying to say. So thank you for making that important point. Can you tell us how to reach the light at the other side of the divorce then?
Sure. My answer, which I go through in the book, is to meticulously take care of your heart, your mind, and your spirit and heal. So I believe the way to get to the light at the other side of the divorce is to learn, heal, and grow from your experience, to see it as something like graduate school that you can move through and understand and actually learn more. I think it starts with not taking your ex's inventory and putting the focus on you and asking, what can I change about myself? How did I get here? What do I want to do differently? Really, again, as I keep saying, learning from it.
That's such an important point. I love that, taking inventory of yourself, because it's so tempting and it's so easy to justify looking at your relationship, pointing the finger and saying, if he or she didn't do this, my life would be different, and it's all their fault. It takes a very big, aware, conscious person to look inside and say, what part did I play in this? And how is the outcome different when we're able to do that?
Well, I think, one, you feel less resentment overall for your ex. And so things like negotiating mediation, child custody, financial agreements, you can show up with less resentment, and that, definitely makes things go faster and helps you save more money. It also helps you know what you want next time if you do decide to step into a relationship again, which I hope people, if they want to, decide to do. it really helps you. In my book, I have a chapter called Living Life by Design, Not by Default. It really helps you live your life by your own design based on what you want rather than a reaction to what you didn't have in your relationship.
And that's so empowering.
Yes.
So why don't we stop and take a moment so you could tell us how we can find you, find your book, and contact you.
Sure. So my book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Bookshop, anywhere books are sold. It's called The Light at the Other Side of Divorce, Discovering the New You. My podcast is called The Divorce Doctor, and that's available on Apple Podcasts and anywhere where you get podcasts. And you can reach out to me at drelizabethcohen.com, which is drelizabethcohen.com. And there you can find out information about my online programs, and you can find that on the website.
Wonderful. Well, that sounds like it's going to be a really powerful book filled with information, with the right kind of consciousness that we all need to be able to reinvent ourselves and move ahead. So let's talk a little bit about discovering the new you. What is that new you that we want to discover?
Well, a lot of times, I don't know if this is your experience in your divorce, but a lot of times we come out of marriages after having given a lot of ourselves to our ex-partners, and we don't necessarily know what we want or who we are or what our desires are. And so the book really encourages you, again, to separate from what the marriage told you about yourself, what the other person told you about yourself, and really figuring out who you want to be, what matters to you. And from the smallest things, from like what color paint do you want on your walls to, do I want to date again, and what kind of person do I want to date? So just want to say really clearly that this is a discovery. This is a compassionate, gentle, loving discovery of yourself without judgment, without regret. It's simply a stepping into this new awareness.
I love that.
Thank you.
And this new awareness obviously is going to reflect on our children as well. So they are watching us go through a difficult challenge and then hopefully coming out on the other side. So what do we want to say and do with our children as we're going through this transition?
Well, one of the things that comes up a lot is people will say to me when they're considering divorce, I'm not sure I should get a divorce. Why don't I just wait till my kids are out of, on their way to college? And I always give this example. I say, what if your child came to you and said, hey, I just got paired up with this person in chemistry lab, and they're nice, but I'm really not that interested in them. They don't make me laugh that much. I'm just not having that much fun with them. But I'm going to date them till I graduate high school because everyone else has a boyfriend, right? You would say, why no, honey? Like, no, you should either be by yourself or try to meet somebody else, right? But this is what we do. So you have to, one of the tips I say is, and we talked about this a moment ago, is that you have to focus on the fact that you are sending messages constantly to your kids. So this is the message you're sending, that if you're unhappy, you suck it up, you wait, you push through. So discovering the new you and doing this healing work is going to show your children that A, healing matters, B, mommy or daddy is okay, and C, relationships aren't everything in the world, which I think is another message that they need to know, that you matter, that you growing, and that you and your sister or brother or whoever they are in the family are so important to us, and so is my health, my mental health, my spiritual health.
Well, that's a powerful and important message. And as a child of parents who stayed together for the sake of the kids, because this was another era when it was very common to do that, and having a very unhappy childhood because my parents were fighting constantly and I was exposed to nonstop conflict, I can tell you that it is not the right way to go. Children do not benefit from being exposed to a toxic relationship.
No. And they feel it. Even if, no matter how good you think you are, quote unquote, at not showing it, they feel it, they see it, they know it.
Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that wisdom with us. We're getting close to the end of our time together, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to give us a couple of takeaways. What do you want our listeners to remember from this conversation so that they are moving ahead in the best possible direction during and after their divorce?
I guess I want them to know that they have done heroic work, that they have done unbelievable work, just either accepting that the person in their life wants to get a divorce and allowing it to happen, or saying this isn't working for me and I want a divorce. I want people to feel empowered. I want people to feel like they are bold, even in the times when they're in the most hurt. I want them to know how amazing it is what they've been able to do.
Yes, that is such a positive message, because it just boosts our self-esteem and lets us feel more empowered as we tackle the challenges that we're dealing with every day. Isn't that so?
Yes, absolutely.
So we've been listening to Dr. Elizabeth Cohen. She's the clinical psychologist and author of the new book, The Light at the Other Side of Divorce, Discovering the New You. And tell us one more time how people can find you and that book.
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere you get books. And my website is Dr. Elizabeth Cohen. That's drelizabethcohen.com. And I'd love to hear from you. Happy to provide any support I can.
Well, that's wonderful. This has been a very enlightening conversation. We so appreciate hearing from you, and I wish you great success on your new book.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So this is Rosalind Sedacca, as you know, founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and we have ebooks and e-courses on breaking divorce news to kids, co-parenting successfully, anger management for co-parents, and other issues that are important as you travel through the divorce experience and move on to a happier life, to discovering the new you, as Dr. Cohen has said. And I hope you'll join us again on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, for Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sedacca. Till next time, bye-bye for now.
You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.